Hello everyone, welcome to Progress Junior Golf with Live Sport Now and the England Golf Young Ambassadors. My name is Steve Jackson and this is Ian Waterhouse.
Hello everybody, how are we doing? Steve, back-to-back weeks, this isn't it? After a bit of a break, we've come back fast and hard.
Absolutely, yes. Just in time for the next lot of big podcasts that we've got coming up. So we need to get back into the action as quick as possible, don't we? So yes.
I'm excited for this one as well. Sorry to interrupt, Steve. Very excited for this one. We've got some very good guests on, I must say. But before we do get into things as well, please don't forget, if you want to have your say, do get in touch with us tonight. I've got some quite strong views on tonight's subject. We'll come on to that a little bit later. But the live chat is open at Live Sport Now on YouTube. So if you do want to get involved, please do send us a message right there. There's a link in the body of this broadcast. Comment in the live chat. If you keep it clean, we can show it on screen as well. And at any point, if you do want to find out more about Progress Junior Golf, there's a link in the body of this broadcast too. Give it a click, take you straight through to Steve's website. Sorry, Steve, over to you.
Yes.
A little bit of housework, just got to get it done.
Get it done, absolutely. Right, so this podcast is all about junior golf. It's about the next generation of golfers. It's about getting more boys and girls playing the game of golf. This is show number 35, and we're going to look at golf clubs today, and in particular the process of joining a golf club as a junior member. Now, it's something I didn't actually do as a junior golfer. I started playing the game of golf when I was 10 years old, but never really joined a golf club. You know, lots of reasons why that was the case. Never had the opportunity to, if I'm being honest. And I know very similar with yourself in the sense that you didn't even really start playing the game until later than that. So it's very similar with yourself.
Yep. I never had to worry too much about. Well, we're going to touch on a few
absolutely, yeah. So the point is, neither of us two know anything at all about joining a golf club as a junior golfer. So we need some help, don't we? Because we need some people 100%. On the show who do know what they're talking about. So to help us find out, you know, the whole process, we're going to have different point of views. We've got a pre-recorded interview with John Gilding. Now, he's been a manager / secretary at 2 different golf clubs and 2 different types of golf clubs as well, with different types of members. So different juniors, different adult members, so different perspective on the subject of juniors. How do I word this in a way? Some of them more pro juniors, some of them less pro juniors.
You said it.
I won't name names of golf clubs there. So that's obviously the club perspective, or the club's perspective, you like, because 2 different angles there. But we need the junior perspective as well. And I'm delighted to say that joining us live in the studio, we have 2 young England Golf Young Ambassadors. We've got Tom Ford, who's been on the podcast before. And we have Kennedy Murphy, who is a Progress Junior Golf podcast debutant. So it's lovely to have Kennedy on as well. And obviously we're going to be touching along lots of different subjects within the subject of joining the golf club. One of them in particular, which I know you have very strong points of view on, is the interview process. The process of going to a golf club and having an interview to find out whether you are, in inverted commas, good enough to be a member of a golf club.
Hang on, Steve. Let me just check the date. I'm just seeing if it's 1912 or something. Just checking. No, it's 2023. Yeah. Sorry.
Yes.
Just double checking. Because I can't imagine there's any clubs that still actually do that. Is there?
We shall come to that. Right, that's the podcast this afternoon then. So this evening. Right, first things first, so let's do the latest junior golf news. Obviously, we had a podcast, as you mentioned earlier, just a week ago. So therefore, we covered quite a lot in that podcast. So obviously, everything we're going to be covering now has been literally happening in this last week. But there's still been plenty which has been going on. Got a big competition coming up next week. May the 25th to May the 27th, May the 28th is the Brabazon Trophy. Takes place on the new course at Sunningdale, a course which we're very familiar with, obviously, with the Sunningdale foursomes last year and this year we were both involved with. So that is the English Men's Open Amateur Stroke Play Championship. So it's a men's competition, but obviously lots of juniors can play in it. Now the field, a lot of the players have automatically qualified to the field. So some names which regularly get mentioned who are already in the field: Josh Berry, Tommy Bowen, Sean Keeling, Killen Shaw Radford, Harley Smith, John Goff, who this week won another big competition. We will come to that in the news in a few moments, so don't give away anything there. So they're already in the field, but there's been some qualifiers this last week or so, and some really good scores to get into this competition. So the Midland qualifier, this took place at Kellaston Park in Derbyshire. The winner someone who got mentioned in the last podcast as well. So another informed golfer, Mark Stockdale. He won again, 5 under par 67. Other names, lots of qualifiers, but they're the names which familiar to this podcast and familiar to all people within junior golf. Jake Soden, who made it through, Joe Jones, Jake Plum, just some of the qualifiers from that event. The Northern qualifier, that took place at Delamere Forest in Cheshire. Winners were Ross Laird and Ruben Lindsay. Once again, really good scoring, 66, 6 under par won that one. Some of the names who qualified, George Cannon, Mackenzie Holmes. Actually, a couple of names which I don't know actually know whether they're juniors or not, but I just feel as if I mention them because I just love the names. Mark Boucher, if you're a cricket fan, I don't think it's the same Mark Boucher, but it's definitely a Mark Boucher qualified there. And an R. McElroy. I think he has been mentioned.
Okay.
Yes. Reese McElroy. That's it. Absolutely. He's made it through as well. So well done to him. And then the Southern qualifier, that took place at Goodwood. The winner there was Tim Hollis, 72. Some of the other, Chris Kim was another one of the qualifiers there. So that took place at West at Goodwood in West Sussex. Now, I mentioned earlier, John Goff won a big competition. He won the Irish Men's Amateur Championship. I mean, that guy is in some form. I mean, he's going to be.
He's not just in form. He's been on form for the last 2 years, hasn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. So well done to him. He won at the Island Golf Club. Tom Bowen, who I mentioned earlier, who will be playing in the Brabazon Trophy, he finished third. And I'll come to his score in the third round and in the second. Dylan Shaw Radford finished second in that competition, scores of 72, 71, 68, and 72. He missed that by one shot from John Goff, who shot 67 in the final round. But Tommy Bowen shot a 62 in the third round, which was a course record. And the course record he broke it by 3 shots. And the course record was set, believe it or not, 3 minutes earlier.
No.
So you can imagine you've just been told you've just shot the clock. I don't know who the player was who did shoot the course record in the third round. I mean, you imagine you've just been told, well done, you've just shot the course record. You're celebrating near the 18th green, and then the guy playing behind you goes and beats it by 3 shots.
Yeah. Must have been aware though that surely the guy was on some round.
Absolutely, yeah, yes. I think, and actually, I think the guy it was even set earlier as well in the day. So I think the course record was reset, if you sort of mean, 3 times throughout the course of the day. So some scoring in that competition.
Golf's getting too easy, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. Right, now, obviously, like I say, we did the news a week ago. We covered a lot of events. But in the last week or so, there's been a few county championships which have been taking place. So can't go through all of them. Some of them are men, some of them are ladies, some of them are junior county championships. I think we've got a photo of the winner of one of them, though. In Somerset, Burnham and Barrow's Freddie Turnell. He won the men's championship on his home course. There he is there with the trophy. But that's not the trophy he actually won, because the week earlier, he won the junior county championships as well. So he did the double that week. He won the junior county championship by 2 shots. Then he won the men's county championship as well on his home course. And actually, when winning the men's championship, he also won the under-21s, obviously, bearing in mind that he's under-21, and he won the main championship. So he won 3 trophies within the space of a week. Shots 70 and 69, and won by a couple of shots from a clubmate, actually, Philip White. Right, ladies then. So Norfolk Ladies County Championship, that took place at Great Yarmouth and Caister. Royal Norwich's Chloe Tabard won. So the way the format goes with this competition, 36 holes of stroke play, then 4 rounds of match play. She qualified for the stroke play as the 5th seed, got through to the semi-finals, beat the top seed in the semi-finals, and then in the final, the 15-year-old England international, she beat Gemma Batty 4-3 in the final. So well done to her. In Northamptonshire, Lila Bizet from Northampton County, she won the county championship, the ladies county championship, and then the junior county championship. Got a photo of the winner of the girls competition there. A friend of the podcast, she's been on the podcast previously. Eloise Feely won that competition, so well done to Eloise. There she is. What a fantastic photo. I wonder who took that. And the boys competition was won by Jack Peters. So well done to both of those for winning those competitions. Another couple of county championships as well. In Cheshire, under-18 championship, Isabella Taylor-Stokes, player who's been mentioned, and we've seen her on the Faldo series on many occasions. She won that. And the Northumberland Schools County Championship, that took place as well. And the under-16s, and the overall girls' championship was won by Charlotte Norton. So well done to her. Now, as you well know, Ian, last week we did a podcast on the Alexis Golf Brown Foundation, and delighted to say that they had a competition this week, or a culmination of a competition which took place over the winter, the winter long drive competition. Like I say, there was events in November all the way through to now, and they had 4 divisions. The winners, the 4 divisions were Neve Begley, Charlie Alton-B, Monty Beer, and William Scott. So well done to all of those, and well done, of course, to the Alexis Brown Golf Foundation. Another great event for them.
Long drive. How far did the winners go?
I think it's fair to say probably all of them hit it past me. Even the under 6-year-olds probably still hit it past me, and I know they certainly would do with you. And I've never seen you play, but I'm pretty certain that. So yes.
Yeah. If you see me play, you'll know.
Oh no, absolutely. Right. Yeah. That wraps up the junior golf news. Have you got anything to tell us, Ian? Have you got anything big coming up? I know you've got some live events.
Yeah, actually, I do. Actually, we're at Farnham Golf Club next week for the Tier 1 category for the Mizuno Next Gen Series. Quite a cool event. We're there on the Thursday, Friday. £60,000 prize pot in that one with the Mizuno Next Gen Series. So you can tune in and watch that live. And a little scoop for you as well, Steve. We're actually filming for Sky Sports Golf that week as well. Fantastic. So keep on coming to your screens soon. So there you go. Absolutely. Bear in mind.
Right.
That's it.
Let's do the podcast. We'll keep you in because I know you have some strong views on this, Ian. So we'll keep you in for parts of this then. In particular, because we're going to be talking about junior golf clubs. We're going to be talking about when we get to the point whereby I know you have some strong views, we'll bring you in, kind of thing. Because
I'll go out. I'll bring our guests in because
absolutely
nobody really wants to see me.
Right. So we're going to be talking about juniors and them joining a golf club. So to help us out, we've got 2 England Golf Young Ambassadors. We've got Tom Ford and Kennedy Murphy. Let's get rid of you, Ian. Let's bring them in and let's say hello and let's get on with this podcast. Right. So, Tom and Kennedy, welcome to the show. I hope you've had a good day so far. Right. So, obviously, we're going to be talking about joining a golf club. So, simple question. Then we'll start with Tom first of all. Simple question for you then. When did you first join a golf
club? So, I first joined a golf club properly when I was about 10.
But you had you gave us a little bit of an insight before we came on air. You were part of the golf club even before you actually joined, really, though, weren't you? Because your family were members of the golf club and they kind of got you involved even before you knew it.
Yes, my dad and granddad are members of my local golf club. And my granddad always used to join me up every year, just in case I suddenly had that moment where I went, I want to play golf. And that would be like the moment where he'd run me down the golf club, be like, yeah, let's play.
Now, slightly different from yourself, Kennedy, because obviously you actually only joined the golf club very recently. Just explain that.
Yeah, I joined last year when I was 14. I just sort of, I needed that, step up, because I've been playing golf for quite a while, since I was 8. So I just needed, that step.
Okay, well, we'll come to that actually to find out the reasons why you did join a golf club. Though. As I mentioned earlier, though, we've got John Gilding, who's a former club secretary of 2 golf clubs. Let's hear from him first of all, because he explains a little bit about where they go about finding the juniors to become members of a golf club. This is what John had to say.
Some of it is from parents who are already members at the golf club. Others are from existing junior members. And then the hardest thing is some of the juniors are don't like talking very much. So once we can get them in and chat to them, and I mean chat rather than interview, then we can actually start making progress, trying to get them relaxed.
And when you say normally comes through parents or members of the golf club who generally are parents, might be grandparents as well, did they come to you and say, my grandson, my son, or my daughter might be interested in becoming a member, and then what do you do then? Do you say, go to the pro? Do you say come to me? What would you advise them?
Yeah, I'd like to see them to start with, and then we introduce them to the pro, and also the junior captain for the year, and hopefully find out that they know quite a few people from the schools anyway.
And when you say that you prefer to talk to them yourself before going to the pro, what about when actually they've already been to the pro? They've perhaps started doing, you know, taster lessons and things like that, and the pro comes to you. What kind of conversation do you have with the pro in those circumstances?
Basically getting application forms and getting them joined in. The only problem that you have with juniors is if they are quite young, they obviously can't go out on the course on their own. So they need accompanying because of the safeguarding measures. So it's not that easy to get a 6 or 7 year old to actually start playing golf unless they've got parents who take them out, friends who take them out, or a club with a really good junior leader who will then encourage them and organise sessions for them to get out on the golf course.
So when you're having that conversation with the professional who says, you know, this is a youngster who's having lessons with myself at that very early stage, you know, like you say, perhaps very young,
Yep.
you know, is it a two-way thing whereby you say, are they ready to become a member yet, or do you just have to wait until the parent or the child comes to you?
Yeah, really, they shouldn't be using most clubs' practice facilities unless they are a member. If they go and have lessons with a pro, then fair enough, they obviously use the facilities, but they should be a member to actually use the club facilities.
So obviously that's John talking about the different scenarios of juniors at his club and how he introduces them. Now the irony about it is both Kennedy and Tom, you both came through the routes he was talking about there. So in your case, Kennedy, you'd been having lessons and you then became a member at a later date. So did that process, or did it start from you going to your pro and saying, I'd like to become a member? Or was it the pro saying to the golf club, I think Kennedy should become a member? Which way did it work with yourself?
Well, I had lessons at like a course that wasn't, it was a par 3 course. And then my coach at the time, he was telling me, because the girls that I was having lessons with, they were all members at golf courses, and he was saying that I needed to look around and find somewhere that, you know, I can be a member at, so that I can progress at the same time that the other girls were.
Okay, so it's actually a different golf club than the one you were taking your lessons at. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yourself, Tom, obviously you were already at the club, and you say that, you know, you said that your parents had signed you up, or I think you said your grandparents had signed you up, kind of thing, on the basis that you hope that the penny might drop and you might go, yes, I want to become a member. Was it you who started that then? Was it you who said, I actually do want to become a member?
So initially I was having lessons. I was in sort of Kennedy's situation. I was having lessons at a different golf club. And my coach, I didn't even know that my coach said this to my mum, but my coach basically went, the best thing that Tom can do now is just get on the golf course. And I was about 10 at the time, and I had no idea. And then my mum was like, so your coach was like, the best thing you can do and go on the golf course. And I was like, wow, well, it's a big scary thing when you're like 8, 9 years old. I mean, it's a massive field. And like, so I went to my grandparents, went to my dad, and was like, well, he said I should go on the course. And I was like, and they were like, yeah, all right, yeah, we'll take you out on the course. And I just kept going round and round and round ever since.
I was interested in the fact that you used the word a little bit scary about the fact that, you know, moving onto the big course. And with yourself, Kennedy, you say you went from a par 3 course. Was that going from a par 3 course to a normal 18-hole course?
Yeah, it was quite intimidating. It was.
And how easy, we're going to ask the question to John in a second, but I'll ask you the question first of all. How well did the club introduce you to the club then? Because like you say, a little bit apprehensive when you first arrived. Were they very supportive? Did they help?
Yeah, well, I joined before I played, and then to go around 3 times to get my handicap, I walked around with this lady, and she was so lovely, and she was very talkative, and she got to know me, and yeah, it was very nice. Like, they just sort of ease you in slowly a little bit.
Okay, So I mentioned, I asked John the question about, so this is the question I raised with John. I said, how does a club introduce the juniors into the club then? This is what he had to say.
To relax and enjoy it, even if they only play a few holes. I've got a grandson who's just 12, who started off at about 6 or 7, and he's now comfortable at the club and he'll go out and play with other juniors. But a few years ago, obviously, he wasn't old enough to do it, so he had to play a lot with his dad. It's a relaxing thing once you get them there and they know exactly what they can do and what they can't do, because we're pretty keen now to allow them with trainers in the clubhouse, as long as they're good, clean trainers. Very few of them haven't got shoes, unless they're the ones they go to school in. So I think most clubs now are coming round to this particular century rather than living in the past.
Is that more a case of the very younger ones, whereby, you know, at that stage that they don't want to spend a lot of money on equipment, they don't want to spend a lot of money on golf clothes and things like that? Is the fact that, you know, just give them a gentle introduction into a golf club?
Yeah, that's how it goes with a pro, because they grow so quickly that if you spend a lot of money on a set of golf clubs, they've grown out of them within 6 to 9 months. So don't advocate spending too much to get little Johnny or Josie playing golf at an early stage. There's plenty of people who have hand-me-down clubs to get them started, just to see if they enjoy it or not.
The cost of membership then to become a member of a golf club, it can be free at some clubs. So what was your take when you were a manager? And obviously you were at 2 different clubs. Did you have a different kind of mentality as far as the price was concerned at the 2 clubs?
Yeah, on a proprietary course, they're not quite as keen on junior members, because they're getting something like 40 or 50 or 60 pounds from the junior, as opposed to 800, 900, £1,000 from an adult. So they don't want the course clogged up with juniors. Whereas a members club, a bit of a different mentality. They do want the juniors. They see them as the lifeblood of the game coming through. They won't necessarily stay at the club that they join as a junior, because they'll be off to university and jobs will move them away. But you at least get them on the ladder of being a member of a golf club, and hopefully they carry it on. Price-wise, as you say, 1 or 2 clubs are free. The majority will be charging in the region of 30, 40, 50 pounds, probably up to 80 pounds as a maximum. When you think the full membership is probably about 1,200 pounds, tremendous value for the juniors. And some juniors actually become members of 3 or 4 clubs.
Now, we did a podcast last week about a charity which is set up to help underprivileged children from backgrounds who can't afford, you know, even something as small a cost as that, and the golf equipment and things like that. Is that something which you have to bear in mind when you do offer membership, that there are people out there who just can't even afford that level?
Difficult, because the club is a business, isn't it? And it needs money to actually survive and to go forward, with all the maintenance of the course and everything else that goes with it. So yes, we can encourage them, and they have free lessons to get them started. But yeah, if there's scholarships that will get them in, then fair enough. But it's very difficult to give something away to everybody. So you go to one, you've got to give it to everybody.
So that's obviously John talking about the issue of cost, which involved with the membership of the junior membership. Now, I don't know whether this is something, I'll come to you first, Tom. How much aware were you how much it did to become a member of a golf club? Was that something even at that age you even knew about, how much it cost?
So I knew that obviously lessons cost money. But I mean, there were certain points where I was completely unaware that I was a member of a golf club. So I didn't actually know how much it cost me or my grandparents. But I sort of, as I've got older, I've sort of realised that golf is one of the more expensive sports to play. I mean, like clubs, clothing, it's all incredibly expensive. And I've sort of more understood that idea of how difficult it could be to start golf.
And with yourself, Kennedy, you mentioned that when you moved from your golf club, and a lot of your friends who were having lessons with you, they were already members of golf clubs. So was that a factor when you were looking at potential clubs to go to, is the fact that how much it might cost to go and become a member of a particular club?
Like time, I was like quite unaware that like how expensive everything was and the cost of everything, and it was just sort of something that like my granddad would like be in control of, and then everything else that I could do was stuff that I needed to do. So I didn't really know.
Is that something you're aware of now, even now? So, for example, is it something where you have a conversation with other juniors and find out whether it's more expensive to join another club or to stay at your own club? Is that a conversation which juniors have between yourselves of how much a membership would cost?
It's not a conversation that I have with other juniors. It's sort of like I'm at that age now where like I get pocket money and I get money myself, and then you just sort of realize how expensive things are when you finally get money. You're not like, can I borrow £10? So, yeah.
I mean, yourself, Tom, is that something that, have you had those types of conversations with other juniors about different clubs and what it might cost there?
Yeah, so I'm a member at 2 clubs in my local area, and my fellow juniors at my club often come up to me and they're like, oh, how much did it cost you to go there? Was it good value? Is it worth it? Kind of thing. And yeah, I think, yeah, definitely, like we talk about it because we want to go and play as many places as we can. But I think the first time that I noticed how expensive golf really is when I went to book a green fee at a different club, and I saw that it was like 3 digits, and I was like, oh my, like, yeah, I was really taken aback by it, sort of.
Okay, now both of you have mentioned the fact that you obviously speak to your friends and other juniors at your club about joining golf clubs and things like that. It's a question I'll pose to John, whether he goes into schools, whether the golf club is that a way to attract juniors. This is what he briefly had to say on that subject.
Schools, if they're keen, we've had them over at Kettering with a school. We'll come along, we'll set aside the practice area for the school for a certain amount of time on an agreed afternoon and let them run loose. But you need enough volunteers to look after the children for their own personal safety. That's the biggest trouble with the youngsters. They'll be swinging clubs made of lead, metal, with golf balls, and they don't all do exactly what they're told when they're told. So they need proper supervision. And a brilliant junior organiser at a club is why the club will then move forward. There's a few clubs in this county that have got superb junior organisers and junior committees, and they're the ones with good junior sections that bring the kids on. Northampton Golf Club was prime example. And they've had some very good players, very good junior county champions.
So John mentions the junior organiser there. So, and what role did that play? You first, then Kennedy. What role did the junior organiser play in you being attracted to a golf club and also staying at the golf club? How important is that person at the club?
Well, my junior organiser, she introduced me to other like older and senior members of the club, and you exchange like socials and numbers, and everyone's always really nice. They'll always say, if you ever want a round, I'm here, and it's quite nice because I always know that like if I want to play golf and I don't want to go with my friends, I can play with one of the ladies or one of the men. Like, it's fine. It's really nice.
Is that a similar experience that you've had as well, Tom?
Yeah, my junior organiser was really helpful in like introducing me to the other juniors and members at my club. So I know now that, and also at other clubs as well. So I know now that if I wanted to play golf in 2 days' time, I could message 12 different people on my phone who would go, yeah, let's play golf, because my junior organiser helped me to meet those people and to like help organise golf, basically.
And the junior organizer, obviously, I know particularly with Kennedy, obviously you've only really been doing it for a couple of years at your club, but junior organizers tend to change quite often, you know, and is that an experience which you've had in particular, Tom, in the sense of, and what does happen when your junior organizer changes? Does sometimes the dynamic change at the club when that happens?
Yeah, so this year my junior organizer changed from last year, and obviously it's a different person, so it's completely different personal circumstances for that person. So they, my current junior organizer isn't able to do as much as the one before because the one before was retired and the one currently is working. So it's a little bit more difficult for them to be there at every midweek competition in the half term and stuff like that. But they try their absolute best to sort of be there whenever they can.
And is that an extra, like I mentioned, obviously you've only been at your club for a couple of years, Kennedy. Have you had the same junior organizer throughout that period?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
And how important has that been, the fact that you have had a little bit of continuity? You felt, you know, they've helped you settle in at that club?
Yeah, it's always nice rocking up to a competition and she's there with the scorecards ready and everyone's sort of crowding around. Like it's nice knowing that she will be there and she's someone that, you know, you're comfortable with and that you've known for quite a long time.
Okay, now we're going to come on to the big subject, the one which I know Ian wants to talk about. We're going to play an interview with John first of all, and he's going to talk about the interview process at a golf club. So let's hear from John. Once the interview finishes, we'll bring Ian in as well, because I know he has some strong opinions on interviews at golf clubs. This is what John had to say, though, about the rights and wrongs of conducting the interview with a junior golfer. This is what John had to say.
You don't sit in your office behind your big desk with them sitting the other side like the headmaster and the pupil. You take them out into the general restaurant area, the lounge area, just sit down, have a drink with them and chat. And you soon find out what makes them tick, what do they want, and they talk a lot more freely then, rather than formal interview sitting behind a desk. That's intimidating for the children.
And what kind of questions do you ask then in that situation?
Simple questions. Why do you want to play golf? What's interested you? Are you being forced into it by your parents, or do you really want to play? Lots of parents want the children to do it, and the children not necessarily want to do it. I think it's brilliant because it gets them away from the computers, the phones, and everything else that goes with it. Gets some fresh air, gets some exercise, and meets other kids, which they don't do sitting at home on their laptops.
So presumably when you've been in that situation, you've had very different answers coming from those two children. You've had some of them who've said, yes, love the sport, want to play it, kind of thing. And then you might have had ones who've even said, you know, my parents want that. So in that second scenario, what do you do?
Basically, you talk to them. Do you want to give it a try? Are you prepared to give it a go? If you don't like it at the end of the day, we'll talk to your parents. But until you've tried it, how do you know? So I think everybody has to have a go at it. Lots fall by the wayside very quickly. We've always had that with junior members. Probably getting on towards half don't stick to it. And the half that do go on to be good club members, playing teams, playing county competitions. And it's a great way to meet people, make friends.
And is there an obvious, I mean, I'll give you two scenarios there whereby one junior who was very, very keen and one who was, the parents were more keen. Was when you were doing this process for over a number of years, was it a very noticeable how the fact that the ones who were very keen at the start stayed within the sport and the ones who the parents didn't stay? Or was it actually a bit of, you know, a mix of both?
A mix of both, because some of the ones who didn't really want to and being forced into it found that they loved it, and just suddenly that was it. They dropped all other sports, they dropped football, and they got addicted to golf. But you only do that by trial and error.
And the ones who said that they loved the sport and wanted to play the game and wanted to become a member for that reason, you say that there was a few of those who perhaps dropped out. Was there any particular reasons whereby you kind of look back and you go, yeah, we didn't do that quite right with them? That's the reason why they did drop out.
Yeah, it's only more in recent years. I think we've had the right junior organisers in clubs to actually push them through. In the past, they're left to their own devices. They can get bored, and there's other things to do out there. even though they thought they really wanted to play golf. When it came to it, sometimes it was too much like hard work to become good.
And in those circumstances, what you obviously have to look back at it and go, how do we make it better? How can we make sure that scenario doesn't occur again? Is that something which you have to do on a regular basis as a golf club?
Yeah, it's all down to the junior section, the junior organizer in each club. Unless you have one of those, you won't have a junior section. You can't grow a junior section because the golf club manager secretary has got a lot of other things to do other than spend too much time with the juniors. When they had club matches, I used to have to go out on a buggy to keep your eye on them for their own safety. So you could have an 18-year-old junior playing with a 10-year-old junior in a competition. So basically you had to keep your eye on them just to make sure that both of them were safe, that the 10-year-old wasn't being harassed by the 18-year-old. The 10-year-old didn't come in and say, oh, he bullied me, he did this. And you could say, well, actually, I was watching, and no, it wasn't like that at all. So you have to be really, really careful with juniors. They do need a lot of supervision.
And not only that as well, you mentioned there the age difference, because you might have, a scenario whereby, let's say you've got a junior team and they might all be 15, 16, 17, all very, very good standard golfers and almost like a gap. And the next lot might only be very young. So therefore, how do you get those to relate to each other? Because obviously they are very different, aren't they?
It is very difficult because an 18-year-old lad and a 10-year-old lad have got very little in common, apart from the golf. So you find a lot of the conversation is about golf. My 12-year-old grandson is now playing for Norfolk under-14s. He's only just 12, playing for Norfolk under-14s, just been picked to play away at Suffolk. Well, there'll be 14-year-old boys there and he's just 12. He sees them at the club, so that's okay. He manages to chat with them. They've got a little academy course they play on, so they do get to know each other. But you've got to be careful because 18-year-old and 10 or 12-year-old, so little in common, apart from golf.
But they must play an important role, those older juniors as well, because they're the ones who can almost relate to those. I mean, you say about that they have little in common, a 10-year-old to an 18-year-old, but a 10-year-old to a 45, 50, 60, 70-year-old has even less in common. So therefore, they are your bridge, aren't they? They're older juniors.
The older juniors, if you can get the good ones, they will welcome the other ones through because they're helping their club team anyway.
So that's John Gilden, obviously a club secretary, two-time golf club secretary, talking about, well, lots of different issues there that he's talking about. But let's go back to the initial thing he was talking about there, and that's the interview at a golf club. We've got Ian in because I know Ian's got some pretty strong opinions on this. I'll just briefly, before we go to Ian, Tom and Kennedy, so we'll start with Tom first of all there, but you haven't actually been through this process of having an interview when you were at your club, and just explain, I don't know whether you can or not, why you didn't have that interview.
If I'm perfectly honest, I don't actually know why I didn't have an interview. I think it's because we want to get as many juniors in as possible. I think that, if you start interviewing, then you start going, actually, no, you have to be a certain standard to be part of this club. And then that, and then I can see Ian's agreeing with what I'm saying.
100%, Tom, 100%. Give this man a medal.
I think as soon as you start going, you need an interview, then you start that's when you start turning away juniors, and that's the last thing you want to do when we're struggling to get them as it is.
And Kennedy, with yourself, so I don't know whether you can answer that question or not, but why didn't you have an interview at your club?
I think ours was the same because when I joined, there weren't that many juniors, and I think they were just trying to get some juniors in. But I know now, since I've joined, there are quite a few, and I know one of my friends joined the other day, and he had to go through an interview. So I'm not quite sure why, but I'm guessing it is because of the lack of juniors.
Okay, so that's interesting, the fact that you do know someone who's been through that process. Right, let's bring Ian in then, because obviously you've got some pretty strong opinions there. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I'm going to be the golf club and say, we need to do an interview with them because we want to find out what kind of person he is, whether they are suitable for playing golf, whether they're suitable for our golf club. Take me apart. Tell me why I shouldn't need to do that.
How do you know that you don't know they're suitable for golf just by sitting in a bar and asking them a question? Do you know what I mean? Like, let's. I'll tell you what. Why don't we take people who want to play the sport of golf and let's just put a massive barrier in front of them, shall we? Let's just do that. Because I'll tell you, I'm involved in a lot of sports. I'm involved in football. I'm involved in, obviously, golf fishing. I'm involved in handball, involved in motorsport. I'm involved in multiple sports. And I have no other sport that actively puts these hurdles in front of getting juniors in. Every single sport is designed to make it easy for juniors to play the game. At golf, we don't know if a 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old is going to play the game for the next 50 years. We don't know. What we do know is that they've turned up and they want to give it a try. So why are we trying to stop them from trying? This is what I don't get. And even John admitted, 50% make it, 50% don't. But that's a pretty good strike rate because I'm involved in football. And I can tell you 50% of the kids who turn up at under 7s are not playing the game at 15 years old. So golf has something right there, doesn't it? So could you imagine if you took that hurdle away and instead of taking, let's say you've got 100 juniors and you interview 100 of them and you think, didn't like the answers of 70, you're only going to keep 30 of them. Well, then if only 50% are going to make it through, only 15 are actually going to be playing in the next 10 years' time. But if you take 100 through and let them all give it a go, we might have 50 juniors now playing at the age of 15. I can't fathom why we go out of our way to prevent juniors from playing golf. We don't know. The question is to sit down, do you want to play? Well, they probably don't know themselves. I don't know. Okay. Let me out on the course and let me find out whether I want to play the game.
Right, I'm going to stop him just to give him. I'm going to stop him just to give him a few seconds to calm down. So I'll bring you back in, Tom. Let's say you had been asked. Yes, we need you to come in for an interview. What would so you were 10 years old at that age. What would you have thought? What would have gone through your mind? What am I going to have to do here? I put myself in your position here. What would you have thought at that age?
I think at 10 years old, I probably would have sat down with my mum and dad and gone, "What is an interview?" Because I never would have heard of the thing before. I would have had to ask them what it is.
And they would have explained, you need to. They would have said, "Well, you need to go into an interview because they need to find out what kind of person you are." What would your response to that be? What do you mean? I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, the way I'd respond, 10-year-old me would go, "I just want to hit a golf ball." Like,
that's it.
I just want to hit a golf ball around the field. That's all I want to do.
I just want to play golf.
It's not,
why are you stopping me from playing golf?
It's not that difficult for me to, you don't have to have an interview to go up the driving range. You don't have to have an interview to go on the par 3 course. So why do you have to have an interview to go on a ball?
Tom, let me ask you. You said you played football as well, didn't you, Tom?
I did, yes.
Did you ever, before you played for your team, because I'm involved with a junior football team, did you ever have to have an interview with the coach before you joined the club?
I'll tell you how I joined the football team. I walked into the room, I had a pair of football boots in my hand, and they went, "Do you want to play football?" I went, "Yes, please." They went, "You're in."
There you go. And that is why...
Their actual words were, "You should probably buy some shin pads."
And that is why football has no problem attracting players.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean,
We'll bring Kennedy in here then, and I'm going to ask you a specific question here then. So 2 questions here. As a girl, if you had to, obviously you didn't have to go through that interview process, but as a girl, would you have felt as if why do I have to go through this interview? What would your thoughts have been if they said we need you to come in?
It probably would have put me off a lot because the thought of moving to an 18-hole course, like a large course, that was off-putting. And then to go through an interview, I'd never been to an interview before, and it would have freaked me out a lot. And I don't know, I think I'd panic. And being in that interview, they wouldn't know like who I am, because I wouldn't have been relaxed, I wouldn't have been calm. So anything I said, it wouldn't really be me, if that makes sense.
Okay, and I'll ask you a secondary part of this question as well. So I asked the question of as a girl going into that, What about as from an ethnic minorities as well? What about that as well? If someone had asked you to come in, would you have thought, are they only asking me because of that?
I don't know really. I'd assume that every junior would have to, and then I'd just assume, I don't know, that it's quite unfortunate that people have to go through that, and I'd just sort of grin and bear it really.
Now, you mentioned obviously as well the fact that there is a junior there who has had to go through that process. Have you spoke to them about that and what their thoughts were and what questions were asked in that process?
I don't know what questions were asked, but I know beforehand he was really nervous because he's only 12 himself, and he was really nervous to go. And I remember him texting me like the day before and then a couple of hours before, being like, I'm scared. And I like, you've just got to calm them down, because he's a really talkative, bubbly person, and I just know in that interview that wasn't what he was presenting to them. And I just felt it was really unfair because I didn't have to go through that. So
go on, I know you want to come back on this, Ian, then go on then.
I mean, it's just, you've hit the nail on the head there, Kennedy. Imagine being 12 years old and having to go, I mean, come on.
George, actually, do you want me to bring something else up as well? Which genuinely, I know of a junior golfer who has had to go through this process, and they had to wear a shirt and tie.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on, clothing in look, golf's a sport at the end of the day. But anyway, that's another subject we could talk about. Yeah. But I think it proves the point, doesn't it? I'm 37, so I have my personal opinion on it. You guys, Tom, Kennedy, you're a better age demographic to actually have the opinion that really, really matters, to be honest. And it sounds like you both kind of agree with my thoughts on it. And I just think I'm all for growing the game. For me, we need to protect the game long term in order to do that. And it's the same in all sports. For example, I'm involved with England Handball, for example, and a lot of their funding requires the clubs to promote and train juniors coming through the ranks. So they are desperate to get junior players in. They do not put walls up. They do not put barriers. They do not interview them before. If you want to come try handball, you come down and try handball. And you know what? Just bring a pair of trainers. We'll do the rest. Don't you worry about it. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter your age. You come down, we'll play. We'll make it fun. And you play straight away and you have a good time. Golf should be no different at all. And these clubs, and I get John makes some good points. Golf club is a business at the end of the day. But you need juniors. You can't just play a short-term game of thinking, well, we just want people who are paying £1,000 now. Well, what about in 15 years? Because you're not going to have a golf club in 15 years, because it's going to be these people aren't going to be playing. Those kids who turned away 15 years ago, well, guess what? They've joined the club down there who are open and friendly and happy. It's just
right.
We do everything we can in this.
I'm gonna let you calm down now. You can have a cup of coffee now, Ian, and calm down. Right, we're going to hear from John again now. We've obviously spoken about the role that the junior organizer has, the role that a possible interview has, but what about the other senior juniors, if that makes sense, older juniors, and also the other members of the golf club? What role do they have in trying to make juniors welcome the golf club? This is what John had to say.
16, 17, 18-year-olds, we can talk to, we can reason with them, we can explain what it's all about, and they'll understand it. So it's got to come from us to the older juniors, and then hopefully lots of the older juniors are wise enough to actually embellish the younger ones and look after them, because they'll be the ones who are going out and playing with them on the course. The younger juniors don't always want to be out there with a 45-year-old playing. They do to start with, but after a while, they want to be playing with their peers, with their equals, either handicap-wise or age-wise.
And your full members, your adult members, your male, your lady members, how important is it then to get them on board and make sure that they realise, that you need to attract juniors to the club?
Yeah, it didn't used to be like that. They were a pain in the neck because they took up the tee times that the adults wanted. So we were careful in the old days to make sure that we had sections and slots put away for the juniors to play in. Usually it was an early afternoon on a Saturday or a Sunday when the majority had already played. Because you've got to remember, if you've got a sort of 10-year-old, 9-year-old out on the course with a 54 handicap, he is going to be pretty slow. And if you've got the whole course out there with 4-ball, men or ladies 4 balls on a Saturday morning, it's not doing anybody any favours to have this 54-year-old little junior or 54 handicap junior holding everybody up. So you set aside slots to get them playing. You have junior medals, junior afternoons to actually make them be comfortable, and the adults won't be playing at that time. Keep them out of the way.
And when do you introduce competitions to juniors? You mentioned there the scenario of a 50-year-old, and that might just be in a normal, playing around the golf. What about in a competition?
School holidays, we used to have lots of Staplefords medals for the juniors through the school holidays, because lots of them are brought up by the parents at about 8 in the morning, dropped off at the golf course. They'll have a practice, they'll go out and play, then they'll come in, have a bite to eat, some chips, then they'll go out and have another round, then do some more practice. We'll probably have another 9 holes before the parents pick them up at 6:30. So those kids need the music. So we used to organise as many little junior Staplefords medals, even sort of Texas Scramble type competitions, just to keep the kids amused. Because a long 6 or 7 weeks in the summer.
Yeah, I'm going to throw a phrase at you, and I'm sure you must have heard it, but there'll be people out there who say our golf club has turned into a creche, and you mentioned there about the parents drop the kids off and then pick them up, 6, 7, 8 hours later kind of thing. At times, did it feel like that in the sense of, with so much responsibility on us to look after these kids throughout the entire day?
Yeah, definitely. And I used to have to keep my eye on them around the chipping and putting green and in the clubhouse, making sure they weren't doing anything silly in the clubhouse. It sounds like you're a mean old spoil sport, but you didn't want them doing anything silly and upsetting the members, because the members would then come into us or would shout at the children, and you can't have that. Anything with the kids has to come through the secretary to tell them off or admonish them or tell them what they should be doing.
And how easy stroke hard is it to do that? Obviously, there are rules now with DBS checks and all that kind of thing. Presumably, as a club secretary, you have to have those types of checks in place already. But how easy is it to be a parent, to be the person who has to tell them off?
From my point of view, I find it quite easy, because I don't go and shout at them and rant and rave at them. Take them to one side, explain what they're doing, what they shouldn't be doing, and tell them you want them to enjoy themselves, but just calm down a little bit and do what they should do. Most of them know it. They just get a bit excited at times. They're not all bad kids. I mean,
and obviously this podcast is about joining a golf club. Let's say you say they're not bad kids, but let's say you were made aware of a child who might have some issues, whether it's actual, proper mental issues or whatever, but moves to your club from another club and perhaps brings with them, for want of a better phrase, a bit of baggage with them. Is that something whereby you almost have to be more vigilant, more wary of what you might have at your club?
Yeah, definitely. You've got to keep your eye on a potential problem and hopefully nip it in the bud before it happens. We had at Kettering in the old days. I used to regularly have to go out on a buggy and try and rescue golf clubs that were up trees. Now, they don't get there in any other way than by the kids throwing them up there in temper. And then there could be 2 up there because one got stuck and they threw their own clubs up to try and get that one down. They're both stuck. So things happen with the kids, and you've got to accept that little things like that will happen. But if they don't interfere with everybody else, then don't go too hard on them. We were kids once as well.
So that's obviously John talking about his experience of dealing with children at his club. Obviously, Ian's staying with us. So I'll come to Tom though. First of all, though, John spoke there about the senior golfers or the senior junior golfers and the role that they played. So obviously, when you were joined, you were very young, and how important were those older juniors at your club to give you the opportunity to settle in and help you out?
Yeah, they were really helpful, because ultimately I wanted to be them. Like, I wanted to be, because when I joined, there was some really good golfers at the club that I'm at, and I looked at them and I was like, yeah, I want to be like you. I want to be playing off of single digits. I want to, yeah. And I feel like the fact that they were role models and seeing the way that they acted around the golf club really, really helped me to sort of learn, I don't know, because there is a certain type of way that you have to be at a golf club. But they helped me to learn that. And I think it's really interesting what John said about kids throwing their clubs in the trees. I don't think that they just do that. They've seen that from other members. So other members aren't perfect. Like the kids will see that, and the kids will go, well, if you're doing that, I can do that. Club and tree. There we go.
Can I jump in here as well? Can I jump in here, Tom? Because John said something at the start where he's talking about, juniors take a long time to get round. I've been behind a 4-ball of a bunch of 60-year-old blokes, and I can tell you it takes a long time when you're behind them. It's not. I mean, look, at the end of the golf club, I get it's a business. You need paying members, and they need to be paying full whack, and et cetera, et cetera. I do feel that there is a problem, an issue that they look towards juniors as more of a problem than actually a solution, which they are the solution. They're the long-term solution.
Sorry to jump in. I think it's interesting the way that Tom used the term out of the way when talking about when he put the junior tee times. I think that sort of belittles the junior section and makes them feel like, oh, well, if I'm going to go out on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday morning, like those aren't good times for juniors. Like they don't always work. In
your experience, Kennedy, have you experienced that in the sense that you've almost felt as if your golf club is like, oh, when did the juniors play? I'll just put them out at that time because no one else is playing then. Have you experienced that?
Sometimes, like we'll have like a competition booked, and then before we even go out, we're getting told, pick up the pace, make sure really quick because there's adult members behind you and they'll be complaining. So we have to sort of rush our game, even though we're not slow. But we just we have that sort of pressure behind us to keep up because it's sort of like we're in the way, even though this competition's been known about for weeks in advance type thing.
And I asked the question first of all with Tom, was the fact that do some of the older juniors, do they help you in that scenario? And also some of the adult members as well. You mentioned right away from the start the fact that you were introducing your junior organizer has been really helpful with you. What about other adult members of the club? Are they also helpful towards you and give you the right advice if needed?
Yeah, so it's usually parents that they'll walk around with, say there's like quite a young junior, they'll walk around with a clipboard making sure scores are correct, making sure pace of play is correct, making sure rules are correct. And then our junior organizer, if there's an unexperienced player, she will play with them behind all of us to make sure if anything is wrong, she's just our whole behind, so we can just go back to her. So they are quite helpful. Like everyone's always down to help.
All right. Actually, I'll ask the question to yourself, Tom. Obviously, I asked you the question about the older juniors. What about the adult members? Were they helpful as well as you were growing up in the sense of trying to, you mentioned that throwing the golf clubs, you might get some bad habits from some of the members, but what about the ones who are giving you the right ideas to follow?
I think those are the best type of members you can have at a golf club. The ones that actually think about how the game's going to be in 10, 15 years. The ones that actually go, yeah, I'll help you out because you are the future of our golf club. Like, at the end of the day, I mean, 90% of golfers are old. Like, I mean, there's got to be something left for the golfers.
Thank you, yes.
For us. I mean, yeah, that's my opinion, personally.
Yeah, I still feel young, but I know what you're saying. Yeah, whenever I'm covering these junior competitions, I always feel old in the sense of, I'm anyway. We won't go into too many details there. Right, obviously, this podcast has been about joining a golf club and about trying to give advice to golf clubs. So I'll ask both of you the question, and first you then, Tom. What would your advice be to a golf club then? If a junior turns up, then they want to become a member of a golf club. What would your advice be if there's a golf club watching now? How do they handle that situation?
Okay, so first of all, don't even bother thinking about an interview. Worst thing you can do.
Yes.
Hand them a form. Go, look, you want to give it a go? Write your name here, sign here, and we'll get you involved. Introduce them to the juniors who are currently at the club, and just sort of treat them like they are already a member. Treat them like they've been a member for 5-10 years. Like, just help them feel part of the club, because I know that is like the best feeling in the world. When you walk into the club, everyone waves at you, everyone says hi, and it's sort of, you actually feel like you're part of a family in a way.
I'll ask the question to you as well, Kennedy, but slightly differently, because you went through this route. What about if not necessarily becoming a member of a golf club, but you wanted to have lessons at a golf club? So what would your advice be to a golf professional if a junior came to them and said, I'd like to have lessons, or if a parent said, I'd like my daughter or son or whatever to have lessons? What would your advice be to them, to that professional, to say, welcome this person into this golf club and they will become a member if you do this right? What would your advice be to a professional?
Just find someone that junior's comfortable with, because they need that little bit of inspiration, especially if they haven't gone through that before. They need something to look up to. So, connect them with a junior organizer or someone who's already a member, just someone that can help them guide the way.
All right, fantastic. Look, I appreciate your time, Tom.
Sorry, Steve, can I answer that question as well?
Well, go on.
My answer to that is quite simply, if you're a golf pro and a junior comes up to you who's not a member of the club and says, I want some golf lessons, I want to learn how to play the game of golf. If they are not playing golf in 3 years' time, you have failed that junior, because that is how it is at most sports. All right. I'm involved in football at under 8 level. And the whole point of this is you coach them, develop the kids, and make them ensure they enjoy it. If any of those kids turn around in 2 years' time and says, I don't enjoy playing football, I don't want to play anymore, then that's where the coach has failed. It doesn't matter on their ability. It doesn't matter if they're a 54 handicap, or it doesn't matter if they're a 10 handicap. The point being is that we want them playing the game. And ability, quite frankly, doesn't really matter at this age. It does. But in the grand scheme of a volume or number of people playing the game, you are going to have players who are better and are going to go on and play on Fowler Series and win it. And, you're going to have your John Goss. But you're also you need a bulk. You're also going to have a lot more higher up who are 20, 30 handicappers. But you need those just as much as you need your single figure handicappers. And so if they're in and they show an interest in the game, we should be doing everything we can to encourage them to play the game. We should not be saying, oh, you're a 54 handicapper, that means you can't play it this time because you're going to be slow. Well, I can tell you, I've played golf with some people who claim to be single figure handicappers, and it takes 5.5 hours to get round with them. So swings the roundabouts. But anyway.
just one last thing. My longest round of golf was with a junior who'd never touched a golf club in his life. It was 6.5 hours on the hottest day of the year. But I was like, yeah, I'm all right with it, because if this junior carries on playing, then that's one extra person that we can have in a team in a year, in 2 years, who can play for the club in 10 years. And I feel like they are still playing golf. I think that is like the best thing ever, that I was there to sort of help them be part of the club.
Yeah. I do think time is an issue in golf. I think, maybe we should start reducing it to sort of 9 holes just to get things sped through a little bit more. And not just at junior level, potentially at all level. I look at golf has a problem, and time is the problem with golf, because there are very few sports. In fact, there are no sports that will take, if I wanted to play a round of golf with my mates, I know that realistically, because we'll have a pint or sparkling water after. So I know realistically, I probably need to leave about 6 hours in total from leaving my house to getting back again. Do you know what I mean? And my wife will kill me, quite frankly, if I did that more than once a week. In fact, if I do it once in a fortnight, she'll kill me. So time is an issue in golf. So maybe sort of 9 holes and shorten it, a bit like cricket did. Cricket did it, Test cricket, 5 days, come on. So they created 2020 and it's worked a treat. So that is a bigger issue for golf to sort out, but that's not for this podcast right now.
That's a podcast for another day. Look, Tom, I really appreciate Anne Kennedy for coming on the podcast. Hope you've enjoyed your debut on the Progress Junior Golf podcast. Obviously, Ian's on every week as usual. We're going to have some podcasts coming up. We're going to be touching on the rules of golf. We're going to be touching on, we're going to do one on junior organizer and how to be a junior organizer, because it's not just quite as simple as just turn up and look after juniors, because there's a lot involved with being a junior organizer. I'm delighted to say that it looks as if I'm just going to be helping out and become a junior organizer at a club near me. So I'm going to be doing some work with that as well. Possibly might even include that as part of the podcast. So there are things which we're going to be covering over the weeks and months ahead. Lots of different subjects within this, and obviously we're going to have the England Golf Young Ambassadors on as well to give that junior perspective, because we get the golf clubs on. We've got John's opinion, and I think you'll agree. John's got a pretty good perspective on junior golf, and he gets it just about right as far as the golf club. I don't know whether he's necessarily in the majority. Almost most of it, yes, almost most of it. But
not so sure I agree with everything he says, but yeah.
No, but better than most, shall we say? So, yeah. But it's great to have a golf club's perspective. It's also great to have a junior perspective, and also it's great to have all sorts of different ideas, and hopefully people can learn from what we're trying to get out there. So, right, appreciate your time this evening. We're going to call it now, and then we shall be back possibly even next Wednesday, or certainly in a couple of weeks anyway, and we're going to be covering more subjects on the Progress Junior Golf podcast. So have a good evening, and we'll speak to you soon. Thanks a lot.
See ya.